Hello everybody, and I hope you're having a fantastic day, and in this video I'm coming back at you with another Let's Talk 6 ring. But before I actually get into it, I want to talk about some things first. Okay, so before I actually get into the full video, I will be doing this for each and every video, especially for those of you that can only watch one video in the first place. But I'm going to be talking about some stuff before I actually get completely into the 6 rings, so that way I can clear your mind and help you understand where I'm actually going with this video, or when I'm talking about abilities and what's not, so that way you understand more what I'm talking about. It makes more sense to you, to be fairly honest. And I'm giving you a second head, so when I actually get into it, it already gave you the info and what you need to know, so that way it's pretty much common sense for you at that point. You pretty much already know beforehand. I even talk about the abilities. Okay, so the first thing I want to go over is the damage chart. Cut in action. Okay, so here is the damage chart. I'm not going to be talking about defenses, because defenses are not going to be the things that improve your DPS. They're going to be decreasing your DPS, and defense varies between each and every enemy, so I'm not even going to be talking about that, to be fairly honest. I'm not even worried about the whole defense part. I'm actually going to be worried about the attack part of this element chart. So as you can see right here, we have stats, whether it's attack, magic attack, or both. We have ability power, total ability power, by the way. So it's all of the ability power combined in each and every move and what's so not. And I'll talk about that in a second if you're confused about total ability power, because pretty much it's like, let's say you have a multi-hitting move, it's ability power 40, but it hits 3 times. You gotta pretty much do 40 times 3. That's 120 ability power. That's the total ability power right there. And then we got the elements. So those are the 3, at least pretty much main factors. There are some small factors involved in some side factors occasionally, like procs, or uses the attack or magic attack stats, stuff like that affects the damage output as well. But these are pretty much the main factors, the main factors of what your damage is going to be looking like and what's so not. Of course, defense is going to reduce it, and damage reflection, damage reduction, all that stuff, but we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how you can increase your damage, not decrease your damage. Okay, so as you can see right there, that's pretty much what I want to show you, so you're not in confusion when I'm actually talking about the ability power of the moves and what's so not. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about, since you understand the damage chart, or let me actually clear your mind actually right before I actually get into this about the ability chart. Okay, so let me actually try to get a really strong move on board. Mage. Okay, let's look at the Mage's moves. Okay, so right here we have Emperor's Bind, and then we got Starburst. Okay, so some of you might be confused. For some of you this is pure common sense already, but for some of you might be confused. It may look a bit confusing, but Starburst by far is the stronger predecessor compared to Emperor's Bind, all hands down. The reason for this being is Emperor's Bind has an ability power of 190, right? But this is only one hit. It deals damage, magic damage to one enemy. It does not hit more than once, so that's only 190 ability power. But if you look at Starburst has an ability power of 70, and it hits 5 times. So if you actually multiply 70 times 5, that's 350 ability power. It's actually 350 ability power, because each one of those hits is 70 AP, and since it's hitting 5 times in one move, that's 350 total ability power, and that right there is extremely stronger than Emperor's Bind. So that's what I mean by total ability power. So if you're confused why people are using Dragon's Claw or Starburst or any of that funky jazz, that is because it has a total ability power and it's higher. It may not look like it by first looks, to be fairly honest. When I first started this, I was really confused why people were using moves like these, because I always thought these had low ability power, but that's not the case, because they're looking at the total ability power. They're not looking at just the ability power alone. I was confused when I first started, so if you were confused, if you're first starter or anything like that, I want to clear that out of your head, so that way you completely understand where I'm going with this. Of course, there's a success value. If it's not 100, or if it does just to say damaging like this, it's going to miss sometimes, at least. It's not going to miss a lot, because considering that has a success value of 80, but it's going to miss some. But anyways, moving on from there. Okay, so I understand what you mean, AzureWrath, and what's not, but which one would be better? A multi-hitting move that has the same ability power, or a single hitting move? As a Lancer, let's say Double Sting. Double Sting attacks twice, and it's obviously in its move, and it shows it right here. And Dragon Crush had the same ability power. Which one would you recommend? if they just had like ability power hits, like there wasn't no added effect, they have added effects right here, but if they had no added effects or anything like that, right, I would tell you double sting would be the better choice. The reason that double sting would be the better choice is because if you get an ability power buff or you decrease their ability power, like let's say you're using like a Dragon's Cry, for example, increases the ability power of damage taken by all enemies by 20 for like 40 seconds. If you do like a ability power debuff for the enemy team, or you do an ability power buff, right, double sting is going to get the better of it. See, by default, they do the same damage, so it really doesn't matter for that. But like if you get ability power buffs, right, double sting's going to get more. Because like, let's say they're both 200. I'm not sure if I said they're both 300, but let's say they're both 200. Double sting, since it attacks twice, since it says, it would say like an ability power of 200 and it would attack twice per se, for example, both of those hits would be having an ability power increase of 20. So both of those hits, not just the whole attack, but both of those hits would have that 20 ability power increase, while Dragon Crush only hits one time, so only one of the hits will get a 20 ability power increase. Now you can see the difference. Since this one hits twice, both of those hits are going to be getting both of those, not one, but both. So there's a 20 ability power difference now in Dragon Crush and Double Sting. If they were both 200 ability power and you got an ability power buff of 20, there would be a 20 difference now, since this one hits twice and both of those hits get the ability power increase. So that's what I wanted to really share with you first. Okay, so the next thing is the before meta. I actually want to talk about the strongest moves beforehand so you understand how much of a buff we got. Okay, so the first thing, the first strongest #1 move that we had before 6 ring is, I don't know if I said before meta, but let me rephrase that. Before 6 ring, the strongest move we had before 6 ring is all hands down Kill Dance was the nastiest move. Kill Dance right here has an ability power of 130 and attacks it's going to be a random target, so it's semi-crowd control, but if you're attacking one enemy, it really hurts them. It attacks a random target 5 times with magic damage. That is a lot of ability power. That is a lot of ability power. That is the hardest hitting move before the 6 rings come out, and it's actually still the second hardest hitting move, tied with all the soldiers moves that I'll talk about in a second, or probably third place, but anyways, I'll talk about that in a second. So before 6 rings came out, Kill Dance was the strongest move by far. The next strongest move, I don't have it, so I sadly can't really like explain it like per like in your like visual, like in your face, but I can show you in here. I don't have it yet. It would be, where is it? I know it's somewhere here. Linkage Arrow. Linkage Arrow has an ability power a total of 400. It's ability power 100 and it damages 4 times. So that right there is a total of 400 ability power, and that right there was pretty dang strong before 6 rings. Now it's still strong after 6 rings, but it's not like the beta, like it's not game breaking ability power anymore, sadly. So yeah, that was the strongest move before 6 rings. The second strongest one is Linkage Arrow. The third one was actually, believe it or not, it was actually Starburst. Starburst was actually, well, if it all of them hit, Starburst was the third strongest move, because Starburst also, on top of it, you ignore damage reflection and damage reduction, so that's very, very nasty. And then from there, it's pretty much like the archer's moves, like Deadly Arab, Arrow of Strength, and then Diminishing Shot, because they're multi-hitting ability power. From there, it just like starts to decline. So yeah, from there, that's pretty much before the 6 rings came out. So yeah, I hope this helped, and let me actually get into the actual class of the 6 ring that I actually am planning to talk about for this video. Alrighty, so now that I talked about all that, let's get into the second to last 6 ring. We have to talk about the Mage. We are finally on the Mage. Hooray! Okay, so if you haven't heard me talk about, percentages are going to give a bigger gap between each and every individual cost, because it's multiplied by that number. Considering the higher the cost, the more stats it's going to give, the percentages are going to give even a bigger boost, thanks to the higher of the number being more higher and higher and higher. So because of that, it's going to have a bigger gap between how much stats they're actually going to give thanks to these percentages. It's not going to be like, I don't think it's going to be too ridiculous, but it may be noticeable. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely, all hands down, I could say it's going to be a bigger gap between each and every cost. Okay, so now that I covered that, let's actually get into the moves. Okay, so right here we got Lunatic Ray. Consumes 10% of your max HP on use. Has an ability power of 100. Deals magic damage that uses both magic attack and magic defense to a single enemy 3 times. When target as a player, it decreases your their cost by 5, and then increases your cost by 5. So right there, that's not a bad move, to be fairly honest. But the issue with it is it consumes 10% of your maximum HP. By far, the move is pretty dang good, especially for like player versus player. If you were to throw this first, and if this hits first, like if this hits pretty dang fast, this right here would be a good player versus player move, all hands down. But you got to be cautious of the 10% use. I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna go. It may or may not kill you quickly. But definitely, besides that, like taking 5 of their cost and then giving it to yourself is definitely a nice move or technique. It's something that the treasure hunter had, except for the treasure hunter, right, doesn't really have too much damage output with it. This class does, on the other hand. So yeah, that is a pretty nice move. But I would personally be aware of the 10% HP. I can't really tell you whether it's going to be like 100% a safe move or not. I think you would have to try it, to be fairly honest. But definitely a nice looking move by the looks of it, as far as I could say. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's go to Seraphic Soul. Ability power of 180 deals magic damage to a single enemy 2 times. And then as an added effect, it reduces the target's defense and magic defense by 20% for 15 seconds. And if you use it after you Lunatic Ray, it's actually going to be by 30% for 15 seconds with an ability power of 190. This right here is a pretty nice move to be using with certain things. Like if you were like doing Crystal Assault, right, for like guild battles and whatnot, this right here is a definitely nice debuffer. It looks like Mage is the top-notch, like, best debuffer. This is right here is better than Emperor's Bind. So if you have Emperor's Bind and you're using it for debuffing, this right here is a better version, literally, of Emperor's Bind. It does more damage, and on top of it, the debuff is stronger for defense and magic defense. So if you're looking for a class that does, like, a quick debuff or whatnot, this right here is the class to go. Now, this right here would really be all too recommended in player versus player, to be honest with you, because the issue with it is defenses aren't going to matter all too much in player versus player, unless you're dealing with like a really high defense rook like 400k, 400k or something crazy insane like that, which usually I don't think it's going to be the case ever yet. You might deal with like late 300, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, yeah. Unless their defense is like beyond ridiculous, which for the most case it usually isn't, this move is not going to be really useful whatsoever in player versus player. Player versus enemy though, a Crystal Assault or like the Crystal Sacred Altar event, something like this would be pretty dang useful. It legitimately would. This and a Lancer's Break, pretty good combo right there if you're really looking to debuff the enemy, the opposite side you're fighting, the enemy team, the opposing force, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so not too good for player versus player, but it can be a great exception in player versus enemy. Okay, so right here we got Dispel. Removes continuous healing, attack speed, and cost recovery speed buffs from a single enemy. This right here is not bad at all whatsoever, and definitely is a great exception to stuff like Super United offenses and guild raids can be for player versus enemy. I would never ever recommend this for player versus player, including guild battles. There's absolutely no reason to even throw this on. These are not even worth considering whatsoever. This is by far a player versus enemy thing right here. For normal missions, I can't vouch. You really have to try it out yourself and see if like their continuous healing or like their attack speed or cost recovery speed buffs are like, well, they don't have cost recovery speed, they have attack speed, so you have to see if their continuous healing or attack speed is really annoying. If it's the thing that really gets them cooking or like rocking and really doing lots of like potential damage to your team, then you might want to throw this on. But for the most part, I would see this being more of a Super United offense and guild raids player versus enemy move or tactic to use. Other than that, I can't really vouch for this move whatsoever, and I don't see it being used in anything really else. So yeah, that's pretty much covering Dispel. Okay, so now here we got Ancient Spell. Ancient Spell is a very nice technique, but it has a bit of risk, just like Lunatic Ray. Both Lunatic Ray and Ancient Spell are very nice, but they have some risk. And let's go over this one. Usable when a staff is equipped as a weapon. Activates the following effect if you take no damage for 3 seconds after using this ability. So if you play Pokemon, it's sort of like Focus Punch. If anything attacks you within this 3-second period, it gets canceled. So this is really iffy when it comes to player versus player, because you could be attacked, it could be ruined, and I'm not even sure if you actually lose cost doing this or not. Even if you don't, it's going to set you back for a full, I'm not even sure how many seconds it took you to cast it, and on top of it, mages are slow attacking characters, so it's going to take you a lot longer to even cast your next attack or ability or spell or whatever you want to call it, to be fairly honest. But yeah, that's pretty much Ancient Spell right there for player versus player. I'm not 100% sure about it. Guild battles, it's also like it's debatable, because like when you go to Crystal Assault, there's no doubt you're shredding the Crystal of Ancient Spell if you have a strong mage, a legitimately strong mage. This right here is probably one of the actually best DPS tactics you could legitimately use in the game. The only issue with it is it has a success value of 70. If it wasn't for that, you would legitimately be doing the heaviest hitting move in the game. All you gotta do is raise the success value up by a certain amount. And actually, this is actually stronger. My bad. I didn't actually mean to say Astrolabe is actually the strongest, because this could actually be the actual strongest move in the game. It just has setbacks. It really has setbacks. If it wasn't for the setbacks, this right here would all hands down be the strongest move in the game. So guild battles, it's a bit iffy. This would be a backline type move. This would not be a frontline type move whatsoever, because if you're just doing regular player versus player, this right here, this Ancient Spell would not be recommended under any circumstance for really anything, because you have to wait a full 3 seconds. By that time you're probably waiting, they're already attacking you. Like if you got a Lancer on the enemy team, right? Lancers just straight up attack you. Like they got like no casting speed. Well, they do, but like their casting speed's so short, it's stupid. All they have to do is one normal attack and boom, like that you get canceled. That's all it takes. That's legitimately all it takes. And Ancient Spell is no longer, I think it's got to be in cooldown time after you use it like that. So yeah, that's what I gotta say about Ancient Spell. This is a very strong move, and it can be definitely used in player versus enemy and maybe guild battles for like if you're being a backline mage. But other than that, I can't vouch for this move. But definitely, if you're doing like I wouldn't say guild raids. If you're doing like, if you're fighting bosses that definitely don't like go crazy on the attack speed, Ancient Spell could be recommended, because again, it does pretty like heavy damage. Only issue is the success value on top of the waiting to attack 3 times. Okay, so the next move we got here is Miserable Burst with an ability power of 180. It damages a total of it damages one ally and the nearby allies next to it. Reduces the target status slime and resistance by 20 for 15 seconds. And if you use it after concentrate, it actually gets increased, and it reduces their usage gouge by 10. This right here is not a bad technique whatsoever, because you can actually, Mage actually has a player versus player advantage. Now this is really like recommended for guild battles. Maybe you might be able to use this or squeeze this within a strategy, but for like duel rooms and like coliseums and stuff like that, right? I've noticed when I'm fighting some mages are still pretty good in player versus player till this day. Not just because of Starburst, the strongest piercer move in the game right now, but because they actually have a combo where you can do confusion with. So this right here may be able to help the success value with confusion, because if you look right here, Mage actually has a move where it can confuse like the maximum 3 enemies, like one enemy and its adjacent allies, so it's like its nearby allies, and then you can increase the success value by using concentrate, or you could use that technique instead and then decrease their status element, and you could combo with Omen or do whatever works for you. So that way this could work out, because if you confuse the target, it's really gonna send them back. It legitimately is. So that right there could be a good support tactic to use when you're fighting other people in player versus player. Not 100% sure. I did see it work in Coliseum once. So yeah. Other than that, that's all I can really say about that move. It's not really strong. It doesn't really have too much purpose in player versus enemy. It may in player versus player. You can try it out if you want, but that's all I can say for that move. Okay, so moving on to the next one, we got Arcadia World. All hands down, this right here is a player versus enemy move. There's no elements involved in player versus player except for like Unison damage. Other than that, no other ways you're going to be able to do element in player versus player. Absolutely none. Not even guild battles with Crystal Assault. Crystal Assault has not involved with elements whatsoever. So this right here is all hands down a player versus enemy move. This is a support type move to actually increase the amounts you're actually getting element wise, or like element attack wise, so that way you're doing more damage, and it removes debuffs from whatever target you're actually targeting. So, well, not target, because you're actually targeting all allies, so there is no actual target, but yeah, you're removing debuffs from all allies, it looks like, as well on top of it. Would I recommend this move though? It really depends on the people you're playing with. There's not a lot, unlike like cost recovery speed and reducibility cooldown times, there's not a lot of monsters out there, to be precise with you, that actually have stuff that increases element attack. There are some, so if you do have like a set full of people, you won't need Arcadia World. You will not need Arcadia World whatsoever, but it all really depends on who you're playing with. It really does. Because there are monsters out there, they are somewhat easy to obtain, like let's per se, for example, some of the 27 costs, some of the 30 costs, Titania, those have like element attack. Ariel has element attack, she actually increases it, I think, by like 6, and then her field buff decreases it by 4 as well. So there are stuff that has elemental attack out there, so it all really depends on who you're playing on, whether you would need it or not. Okay, so yeah, that's Arcadia World. Player versus enemy, all hands down. It's a support move to increase the damage output of your team. It's not going to be useful in player versus player whatsoever. There is no purpose besides using damage in player versus player where you can actually use Arcadia World. Okay, so moving on from there, we got Pigman. Pigman casts Karma on all enemies. Right here is possibly a guild battle move. It depends on the strategy. If you could squeeze it in, it may be useful for guild battles, maybe like stuff like guild raids and super offenses, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I can't really bet on it, because when it comes to stuff like this, usually you can throw like you can't throw Hangman on. Hangman is better than balancing and all that, but like there's a lot of awesome monsters out there that could do like balancing, and then there's a decent amount of monsters ranging all the way back to 33 cost that actually can cast Karma, and there's not a bad amount of 33 cost that can cast Karma either. And for a while with the step up spawns and some of the monster spawns, 33 costs are pretty dang common within the reward pool now, so there are a decent amount of monsters out there that can cast Karma, and then you already have like Karma and balancing. It really depends. I think this could be useful on your set for like support wise when you're doing like guild raids possibly, and maybe guild battles depending on the strategy. Like if you're trying to do a taking strategy where your like team survives, and then after they're done surviving, you cast Karma on the enemy, so right before they kill you and go to Crystal Assault, you cast Karma. That it may work. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, that's what I gotta say about Hangman. Other than that, I can't really vouch for this move whatsoever. And then we got the last one right here is Saipan. Saipan is actually going to be, besides Ancient Spell and Lunatic Ray over here, well, not even Lunatic Ray, besides Ancient Spell, it's legitimately the strongest, it's the strongest, safest move that you can actually use on the Mage. So let me rephrase that. It's the strongest, safest, risk-free move you can actually use on the Mage. It has an ability power of 140. It deals magic damage to a single enemy 4 times. So this is actually stronger than Linkage Arrow would have been. Linkage Arrow was like the second best move in the game, ability power wise. And this has more ability power than Linkage Arrow. It's not going to be I would say it's not going to be stronger than the not the Lancers. Well, yeah, the Lancers too. Because every class in this game, right, is getting a damage increase. They're getting a damage buff. So each and every class is going to be becoming stronger, at least damage-wise, than they were originally. But yeah, what I'm trying to get at here is this is not a bad move at all whatsoever. This is definitely the top 10 ability power strongest moves, if not the top 13, at least I could say. I can't really count it right now. But yeah, This right here is not a bad one whatsoever. It has an ability power 440. It deals damage to a single enemy 4 times. So right there, it is stronger than before 6 frags. Ability power wise, it is stronger than the second strongest move of the game. And then it has an added effect, heals 5% of the damage dealt. So it heals whatever damage you dealt, like 5% of it. So that right there is pretty dang sweet, because it's kind of like a sort of like semi heal, or like it's a mini life drain. It's a mini life drain, and this right here is pretty dang exceptional. Possibly guild battles when you're doing like Crystal Assault, right? You got no health. This right here could be good, because if you don't have enough health, they could possibly one-shot you before Unison, and then you'd be screwed. But this right here is an exceptionally great move. I would say guild battles, this could be useful in guild battles, but player versus enemy, this right here is an exceptional move in player versus enemy, especially if you don't have a cleric on your team. This right here could really help you survive. So yes, Saipan is a pretty dang good move, and personally, I would recommend it for player versus enemy. It is legitimately the safest, strongest move you can actually use on the mage. Keep in mind, you could use Ancient Spell instead, because it really depends. I think they both need they both need a staff, so it's kind of funny. I thought I said usable with a staff and then usable with a relic or something like that, but they both just need a staff, so you can use both Ancient Spell and Saipan. So this is actually the first class where you can actually use one weapon. All you need is a staff, and then you can legitimately use both of the weapon exclusive techniques, because they both just need a staff. So that right there is pretty dang awesome. So that's a good bonus for mage, because there's the lancer, the soldier, and the archer. You have to be split between the weapons for your mage slot, which one you're going to be using for which of these 2 abilities. With the mage, it looks like you don't need that, so that's pretty dang cool. That's pretty much covering the mage. Thank you for tuning in, thank you for watching, and I hope this helped out. This is the AzureWrath, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'm out. Peace.